Welcome, everyone. It is a true pleasure and very exciting to welcome you to campus, to Northwestern, to the McCormick School. I hope you've been enjoying Wildcat Welcome up to this point. We're really excited this morning to be able to formally welcome you to McCormick with the Dean's Welcome today. My name is Wes Burkhart. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergrad Programs in Engineering. And it is my pleasure to introduce Dean Julio Ottino, who will open up today's program. We're very fortunate. Dean Ottino has led McCormick for over 16 years now. He's an extremely distinguished researcher, world-renowned scholar in the areas of fluid mechanics and mixing and dynamics of fluids and granular materials. Here at Northwestern, he's a professor in the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering, and he holds 2 professorships, the distinguished Robert R. McCormick Institute Professorship and a Walter P. Murphy Professorship. Dean Ottino has been recognized with numerous awards, for instance, the Alpha Chi Sigma and William Walker Awards of the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, the Fluid Dynamics Prize of the American Physical Society. And he is a member of both the National Academy of Engineering and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So rest assured, McCormick is in fantastic hands with Dean Ottino. It's my pleasure to welcome him. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Wes. I'm delighted to see you here. Okay. And we are made for this. Engineers thrive in complex times. And that's why I put the title there, Thriving in Complexity. I'm delighted that you came to Northwestern and that you picked McCormick as your house. You are some of the best minds out there. There's probably a remarkable amount of talent in this room. I couldn't possibly imagine what kinds of things will emerge 4, 5, 10 years from now, but chances are that it will be an amazing number of things. But this is a strange times, to say the least. And so let's start with why things are complicated now. And you can see bigger problems need bigger teams. Everything is digital. Things that they were disconnected become connected, yielding things that they were completely different. Social responsibilities at the top of the agenda. The waves of innovation are becoming shorter. Everything is changing quickly. So, in fact, we're experiencing the most rapid change in our lifetimes. And maybe 10 years from now, people sitting in here will hear the same thing, but things are really accelerating. And what does it take to survive in these times? I'm going to mention some technologies in here, some of which you know, and some of which at the very top, they reach a peak and then they were gone. And it's the time that it takes for some of these technologies to penetrate 50% of the market. So let me see if this is working or not working. Probably go here. Okay, so there you see electricity, radios, color TVs. In fact, when you reach the top, DVD players came and gone. They are iPods, the same thing. And in 2016, I was in front of the audience of 2020, who, by the way, did not have a graduation in person, okay? And I told them that if I knew what technology was emerging as I was speaking to them, and I'm telling you the same thing, if I knew what technology is out there emerging, I would be investing on the technology. And I told them that. And in 2016, some people knew about Zoom, okay? They had a beta version for 15 participants, okay? And by the year 2020, when this class graduated, there were 300 million of people daily doing in Zoom. And without Zoom, would have been dead in the water, okay? Because there would have been no online classes. Of course, there are other platforms, Teams and so on, but will have been dead. So the reason for me to mention this is things are changing rapidly. What is that you need to have in your mind to survive in a world in which things change so quickly? In here, you are going to learn a few things that are connected with the times, but most of the things that you learn that are important are timeless skills. They are skills that resist obsolescence. They will be as valid now as 15, 20 years from now. So the most important thing that you need to have is, and by the way, you may not think about this in these terms now because, let's face it, being with masks and adapting to everything is really not good. But you are probably one of the most adaptable classes that we'll ever have in here because you are able to handle all of this gracefully, and this is a skill that will extend beyond the year 2021. So adaptability is, this is very slow. Okay. Adaptability is critical. Okay? And in fact, let me spell this out a little bit more. This is, okay, so massively complex challenges demands new ways of thinking of work that cross the boundaries of classical domains of knowledge and practice. So, what's imperative? We urgently need to develop the people and organizations suited for this new world. And creative synthesis and adaptability, the ability to cross-link domains, connect the dots, work at the nexus, okay, will be the critical skill sets of the future. And this is what you are here to absorb, okay? And this is the domain of whole brain individuals. Engineers are made for changing times and challenging times. We solve problems. We adapt and we solve problems. Okay, so what does it mean to be whole brain? Removing that from there. No, go back there. One more. What does it mean to be whole brain? Now go advance. So everybody here came because you are really good on the left side of the brain, okay? You all thrived in analytical thinking, in math, maybe physics, chemistry, science, okay? That side, logic, analytical, convergent, solving things, being rational, you are all here because of that, okay? And you can make a good living by just being really good at that, okay? Why? Because that plus what you're going to absorb, no matter what branch of engineering, what major you pick, one of the things that engineering teaches is problem-solving skills, okay? So when you finish, you will have two things, most definitely, baseline, problem-solving skills, and a whole bunch of things that are on the left side, analytical, rational, logical. In years past, big consulting organizations like McKinsey, they will never hire an undergrad, they will hire MBAs. Now they hire undergrads in the last, 10 years. But even if you are the best problem solver, there is no big prize for solving correctly what turns out to be the wrong question. At some point, formulating what questions you want to answer becomes as important as solving the questions. At some point, you will get help solving questions. You will form teams. You will be part of a team. So what you need, besides the part there, what I call left brain, which happens to be on the left side of the screen, you need the part that is more divergent, metaphorical, creative, if you want artistic, divergent, you need both. And in here, you will absorb both. And at the intersection of both of those things is an augmented thinking space, okay? So imagine that you have only one mode of thinking. If you expand the mode of thinking, you'll have a richer diversity of ideas. By the way, this will apply to formation of teams as well. You don't want a team, even if they're all amazing, to be all on one side. You want diversity of teams in there because it's a richer thinking space. And it has been said many times, the best way to get a good idea is to get lots of ideas. Well, lots of different ideas. If they are all similar, that's not good. So at the intersection of those two things, this augmented thinking space is where the whole brain thinking space resides. Now, there is a problem with this, and I don't want to go too metaphorical on this, but if you have this wide range of ideas, okay, some of those ideas will contradict each other, the way of seeing things. And I want to kind of mention quickly something that comes from science and some of you may have seen. And without being too esoteric in here, the world that we live in, our everyday space, is kind of manageable, but the space gets very complicated when you start going into the subatomic components, the realm of quantum mechanics and things like that. And in quantum mechanics, there is a principle of complementarity in which one thing can be two things at the same time. Okay? I'm telling you this as a metaphor, but the ability of holding two opposite thoughts in your brain and integrating is critical. And that will happen if you are really good on the analytical side and you are good on the creative side. Sometimes the things don't exactly mesh. And it's super important to be able to do that. Now, let me kind of give you a sort of small demonstration of what I mean by the whole brain thinking. So in there you have a pattern. These patterns were created by an Israeli psychologist called Navon, so they are called Navon Patterns. So you see a big H composed of little letters A, okay? So the letter, that Navon pattern, was shown to people who had damage to one side of the brain or the other one. So when they show the pattern to people who had only the left brain active, this is what they remember seeing. Whereas if you show the same pattern to people who had only the right brain active, this is what they remember seeing. The lesson in here is that you cannot survive only by looking at the big picture, and definitely you cannot survive by looking only at details. You need to see both. So let me give you one sort of illustrative examples of this idea. So these are lithographs that Picasso made in, I think, 1945, 1946. And that was the last one. But if you start looking at the dates, you will discover that actually this was the first one. And what he considered the final one was the one in the lower right-hand corner in there. So the ability of going complex to simple and simple to complex, which are opposite of each other, is one example of this idea of being doing this complementarity thing. So in one case, you see lots of things and you are able to extract the central idea, And some people are really good at this. Give me something that looks like a mess, and I will tell you what's the organizing idea. But sometimes you need to see one thing and see how many things that idea will generate. For example, in the mid-50s, when the structure of DNA was uncovered, no one could have seen the consequences on how much impact unraveling the structure of DNA would have had. All biotechnology came from there. In fact, today there was an IPO for Ginkgo. It's a company in Boston, synthetic bio, and the valuation was like 1.7 billion or something like that. And it's all about making customized DNA. So the idea of going from one side to the other one is super important, and doing both at the same time. Now, let me give you a couple of lessons from art, and I'll start by showing you. I was thinking what picture to show to you, and I decided I'll show this picture. I presume, is there anybody from Belgium here? No. Wow. Okay, fantastic. So this is René Magritte, a Belgian painter. He did this painting in 1926. So I picked the painting. Why? Because this is more than a mask. It kind of, but I also picked it because of the date. Okay, 1926. So I'm going to mention a few numbers just to show that when you look at the arc of history, some things have been really bad in the past. So we're not going to go more than 100 years, but this painting was done a few years after the conclusion of World War I, which was 1918. Okay? In the First World War, 15 million people died. Okay? And remember, the population of Europe was much less than it is now. And in 1918, we got the influenza epidemic, and 50 million people died. Okay? And a few years after that, in 1944, we had World War II. And remember, there were many people who lived through World War I and World War II and the influenza epidemic. And in World War II, 75 million people died. And humanity survived, and we will survive as well. We will prosper, okay? And it will be thanks to people bringing new ideas like you. Now, to give something happier, let me show you this. Matisse was French. I don't know if there's anybody from France in here. No. Okay. One person from Belgium, but no one from France. So he was commissioned a painting, and he was struggling what to do. He had an idea, and in fact, he repeated the idea several times. The painting eventually was called La Danse, and you see the painting in there. And the kind of what is regarded as a final painting, which happens to be in Russia, in St. Petersburg, at the Hermitage, is this painting. So why I'm showing you this? Because Matisse was one of the most accomplished painters of the 20th century, and he had an amazing production, but not every time that he went to his studio, he was really inspired to produce another masterpiece. Sometimes he ran out of ideas. And when he ran out of ideas, that painting was sitting somewhere in his studio, and he painted the studio with the painting behind. This is one, and this is another one. So why I'm showing you this? Inspiration is overrated, okay? You may feel like there are people who are really creative and they come one idea a minute. No, the way to come up with good ideas is to constantly be working and looking for ideas and never stopping, okay? Another point that I want to make, this is Picasso, Spanish painter. He had a long career, lasted like, 80 years, constantly doing things. This was when he was about 15. And I'm going to show you a few things that go from 15 to 25 to about 40. So this is a sampling of Picasso. And then we have Malevich here, who was from Russia. And this is a self-portrait of Malevich. And in here is one early painting from Malevich. And then he became more kind of, let's say, not completely abstract, but a little bit more. And you think that there's no way to be more abstract, but eventually those were how his last paintings became, okay? So what's the lesson in here? The lesson is Malevich didn't start by painting squares black, okay? He started by learning the foundations, the same as Picasso, and then with that foundation, and this will apply to all of you, you will learn foundations in here, and then you will go your own way. And in order to go your own way, you have to, quote unquote, forget some of the foundations. Because if you keep working as everybody else is working, you will never come up with anything new. So it's foundations, and then you go your own way. Okay? Learn the craft and then set it aside. Another lesson here, the last one I think that I have from, is again from Picasso. This happens to be at the Art Institute here in Chicago. So he did this painting. A collector was visiting him. He mentioned that a collector was an American fellow. He mentioned that he had several paintings from him in Chicago, and he mentioned this painting, and Picasso said, oh, wow, I remember that one. When I did that, I had an idea in mind, but somehow it didn't work. It was a larger painting. I had painted something on the side. It was a man holding a fish that the baby was trying to touch. He said, but when I stepped back and look what I was doing, I decided that didn't work, so I cut the piece, painted over, and this is what the result was. So what's the lesson here? The lesson is, do not converge too quickly. Sometimes you saw, when I mentioned Matisse with La Danse, the painting of the people kind of in a circle dancing, he did many, many times. He could have regarded one of those as, this is it, this is how this is going to be. But sometimes one skill that you will learn that is invaluable, okay, and you'll learn it very quickly in a few weeks, starting with design thinking and communications, is that the ability to extract the real question behind the perceived question, okay? When someone comes with a question, even as a consultant, the question that you're asked is contaminated by what the person asking the question thinks the possible avenue for solution is. And your job is to uncouple those things. Finding the real question behind the perceived question is super important. Remember what I said at the beginning. There is no big prize for solving correctly what turns out to be the wrong question. Okay? So there is a danger sometimes of converging too quickly, and that's a problem sometimes with over-analytical thinking. You have one way of looking at this, and you make every problem fit in that space. So let me kind of pause in here and just make the point of why I mentioned art in here, okay? So there are lots of paintings in there from 1910 to 1988. The key to the solution is there on the bottom right-hand corner. This is from a book that I'm doing now, but it's upside down, so you cannot read it. So if I ask you which one is the oldest painting and which one is the newest, and in fact, there are two paintings in there that are done by the same person, you will have to know a lot about art to get this right. Okay? So, by the way, the oldest painting is the one on the lower left. The newest is the one in the upper left. Okay? There are two papers by women named Helen and two paintings done by the same person, which happen to be the woman looking backwards, kind of in the middle, and the painting to the very right, completely abstract. Those were done by the same painter, a German fellow named Richter. Okay? So the point that I'm trying to make in here is, in art, the idea of progress is very tough to pin down. Okay? In fact, if I show you these, chairs are made of some material, and so there's some technology in chairs, and God knows we don't need more chairs. There's a chair there, it's perfectly fine, it works, okay? But every architect and every designer that ever existed wants to create a new chair, okay? So there are chairs galore in there. And again, if I ask you which one is the oldest, maybe you can get the oldest, and which one is the newest, it will be tough, okay? So the point that I'm trying to make is this. In science builds in an organized way. There are sometimes avenues that don't pan out, and you forget about that. But you build layer upon layer, okay? Once in a while, there is a revolution that kind of upsets the status quo. You incorporate it, that could be relativity or quantum mechanics or molecular biology or something, okay? Or all the advances now in AI, but the things go up, okay? Technology, you don't wait for one technology to die before the other technology tries to replace the older technology. In science, there is a say attributed to Isaac Newton that I did what I did because I was standing on the shoulders of giants, okay? So in science, it's a good idea to stand on the shoulders of your predecessors. That's when you write papers, you put them in the references. In technology, the only way to stand on the shoulders of someone, or on the elder giant, is to crush the elder giant. Okay, I'm sure that there is someone at this moment who is thinking about what comes after soon. Okay, some virtual reality thing, something better that will be more than little screens on your computer. Okay, but in art, as there are many stages, revolutions, but you cannot claim that things are moving better because you are evolving in time. So that, if you think in terms of science, your brain will adjust to the reality that things keep improving, but there is more chaos on the art side than there is on the science side. And technology is somewhere in between. Design, by the way, and I'm not making the point in here, captures the spectrum from the left to the right. Okay? So you're at the beginning of a journey here, and I don't have amazingly good pieces of advice, okay? But let me kind of mention a few, okay? One thing that is super important is to separate the urgent from the important, okay? You will have more time to control your destiny than you had in high school, that's for sure. Okay? But there are things that you have to do, and you have to do those when you're asked to do those. Okay? There are midterms, there are finals, you have to make sure you do those things, okay? But at the same time, it's important that you do more than that. I would urge you to look around and find some affinity group that you can connect with. Maybe the Society of Women Engineers, maybe it's Engineers for a Sustainable World. There are a lot of those. You need some people who will not be the ones that you see constantly taking classes with you. Maybe some of those will be. And what you learn in there, things that are important are sometimes never urgent. And what sometimes is urgent, I'm not telling you blow up exams or something like that, sometimes it's not important. It's important to distinguish those two things. The other thing is exploit the breadth of Northwestern, okay? There are people doing amazingly creative work in other parts of the university. This year I came across a woman who is designing the costumes for a new opera in New York. And the way that she thinks about this, the opera is called Iphigenia, it's very different than the way that people think that surround me on my everyday life. So there are people in other parts of the university, try to connect with them, okay? The other thing is, you may have plans, okay? But your plans have to be exactly in the location that you need them to be when the world advances and hits your plans. You have to be willing to modify plans based on how things are evolving. If you have something that is very rigid, the world will not wait for your plans to become reality. You have to adapt to things. Remember, adaptability is the most important thing. And chances are that half of you who, when you fill your application to Northwestern, declare some major, maybe half of you will change. That's statistically speaking what will happen, okay? And the reason is you get more information, you'll be connecting with people, asking questions. You don't have to converge next week or next month. You will have time to do this, okay? Remember, this is not the 100-meter dash, okay? It's more like a series of marathons, okay? But be open, adaptable. There are tons of things that we want to offer. My team wants you to succeed, okay? And you will succeed. You are the best people. For each of you who is sitting now on a chair in there, 11 other people did not make it, okay? We want you to be the best that you can possibly be, okay? So I'm delighted that you are here. I'm sorry about the entry conditions. Hopefully when we have graduation, everything will be fantastic. So welcome to Northwestern. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Again, to remind you, my name is Wes Burkhart. I'm the Associate Dean for undergraduate programs here in McCormick. I'm an engineer, and I want to confess to you that I love it. And I love the rigor, I love the powerful ways of thinking that allow us to tackle difficult problems in society. And ultimately, I love the idea that what we do, what you will do as engineers, has tremendous potency to change the world, make it a better place. And the tools to do that are what Dean Ottino was just describing, the whole brain way of thinking, taking advantage of what Northwestern has to offer. With my comments, I would like to really hit upon two main themes, both of which relate to the responsibilities we owe one another within the McCormick community that you are joining. Something to bear in mind about the practice of engineering is how essential it is to maintain the highest standards of personal, professional, ethical conduct in what you do. One manifestation of this within McCormick, at the conclusion of your education, will be the opportunity to join the Order of the Engineer, take an oath committing yourself to high standards of professional conduct. And we hold that ceremony right in the same auditorium around graduation, and I hope that 4 years from now many of you will choose to participate in that. But starting right now, and throughout your time at Northwestern, you begin to work out the commitment to uphold high standards by adhering to Northwestern's academic integrity policies. So I'd like to talk briefly about that to bring the room down a little bit. Hopefully at this point you will have already read the policy and affirmed your commitment as part of filling out the dossier materials over the summer. All of that's the easy part, to read and nod and say, yeah, sure, I'm going to do it. But you need to recognize that engineering's tough, and over the next 4 years, you're going to face times when you're struggling, and it might be harder to make the right decisions. And so this is something I hope you will spend a bit of time thinking about right now at the beginning of how you're going to commit to yourself to maintain high standards in the work that you do. Okay? Related to academic integrity, I want to briefly mention an area that has increasingly become problematic. I imagine many of you know about these academic support websites, things like Chegg and Course Hero, that create a lot of concerns in the area of academic integrity. And the 2 points I want to make about this are, first, if you extract material from this site, anytime you present someone else's work as your own, you are committing plagiarism. So please keep that in mind. And with respect to opportunities to upload material to these sites, I want to make sure you all know that uploading any content from Northwestern classes to these sites is a violation of Northwestern's academic integrity policy. And in addition, since much of the course content will be copyrighted, faculty-owned copyright protection for work that they present, you might also be committing copyright infringement, which is a violation of Northwestern's Student Code of Conduct. Okay, so the bottom line here is tread very carefully in how you choose to engage in resources of this sort. So I work in the area of academic integrity. I've come to understand that students make mistakes. And if you happen to make a mistake, it will create a learning opportunity for you, probably not one you aspire to. But I also want to acknowledge that serious mistakes can have serious consequences. Since I've been Associate Dean for the last 6 years, there are dozens of students that have had to put a pause on their education because of suspensions related to academic integrity. You don't want to go there. More rare, but really serious, is the possibility for permanent expulsion from the university. And the last point I want to make related to this is understand that we are engineers. Your instructors are all engineers, and they are creative in the application of information technology or data analytics tools to detect possible misconduct. So you're all very bright and creative, but your faculty are also bright and creative. And don't assume you'll easily be able to pass something over on them. Okay? All right, that's enough of that. Let me talk now about our responsibility to you. Here in McCormick, here in Northwestern more generally, really it is our job to create a very fertile environment for your academic, social, personal growth. Of course, this includes the opportunity to dig deeply into your core studies in whatever engineering major you're going to pursue. But there are also a whole host of other academic options, a second major, a minor, a certificate. Perhaps some of you will be interested in our BS/MS program or interested in the opportunity to pursue undergraduate research. I hope some of you will consider studying abroad. Hopefully the pandemic will ease to where this can become as common as it was. One of the great virtues of being on quarters is a little bit more flexibility in our academic year to make it possible for engineering students to participate and study abroad. Of course, in the education of engineers, professional development opportunities are important. I hope you will connect early with our Office for Career Development and look for ways to expand the scope of your education with internship or co-op experiences. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, we will host our Afternoon with McCormick event, which will introduce you to the range of student group activities. And as Dean Ottino said, getting yourself connected with a set of peers within McCormick is a great way to start taking root and really investing deeply in your growth. I hope some of you will take advantage of Northwestern's great traditions in music and the arts to give your right brain a workout, join an a cappella group, get involved in a student theater production. There are many opportunities through student groups at Northwestern to engage in community service, give things back to the community. Opportunities for leadership development in fraternities, sororities, or in your residence hall. Athletics and recreation, you might join an intramural or club sports team. We could go on and on and on with all of this. So there is a tremendous array of resources available for you. As students, you have some responsibility here as well to take initiative, get involved, and become active participants in your experiences here at Northwestern. The last line here is a little bit of a warning. I encourage you to think of this vast array of opportunities as a menu, not a checklist. Perhaps to get here to Northwestern, the college admissions treadmill, you felt the need to try to do it all to come up with a fantastic-looking application. Congratulations, you made it. At this point, I would instead encourage you to think carefully about what you want to invest your time and attention in, and not necessarily succumb to the idea that it's necessary to do everything the university has to offer. You'll stress yourself way out if you try that. Here in McCormick, we are very big on human-centered design, and this begins immediately in the freshman year with DTC. Over the course of this year, you're going to work on 2 design projects. There'll be plenty more coming your way throughout your education. But I would like to say today that I feel your most important design project during your time at Northwestern will be you and your education. And this is a weird design project because you are the client, you are the designer, and ultimately you are the product, okay? But one of the things you will learn quickly about human-centered design is to spend time understanding the problem, talking with the client, the user, understand what's going on. And in this case, this means taking some time for a little bit of introspection. Think about yourself. What are your goals? What are your ambitions? And then carefully taking advantage of this array of opportunities, design and pursue a Northwestern experience that is tailored to your needs. So one important fact, as I sit and look at all of you, there is not one McCormick education. Ultimately, there's going to be 500 different McCormick educations as you find your way through. Now, as you undertake this process, you're not alone. There's a design team, if you will, arrayed around you. Some of the most important sources of support to get you started are your first-year advisors who you've been working with over the summer, and the peer advisors and peer groups that you have formed into this week. Hopefully you are already learning the valuable resource that your peer advisors can be. And we're going to keep you meeting regularly during the first couple of quarters through our first year experience seminars. And through this, you will also come to understand just how important you are as a source of support and resource to one another. Later on, you will engage with upper class faculty advising, where you'll get an advisor that comes from the department relative to your chosen major. There will be departmental staff that are very important to you. I'd like to direct your attention to this corner of the auditorium where several of my colleagues, particularly associated with the Office for Undergraduate Engineering, are sitting. We are always here to help you. In McCormick, 2 particular offices are important to mention. Our Office for Personal Development, led by Dean Joe Holkreeve, and I already mentioned our Office of Career Development, led by Dean Helen Olaroso, which already as freshmen you can enroll in Career Development 301, begin taking advantage of our resources to think about what your professional goals are and the steps you can take to achieve them. Those are my comments. It is now, well, thank you for that. It is now my pleasure to introduce Alexandra Gomez. She has been McCormick's representative to the Wildcat Welcome Board, working hard all summer to plan a great welcome experience, and it is my pleasure to welcome her here to address you from the students.
Hello. Thank you so much. My name is Alexandra, as I was just introduced. I use she, her pronouns. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a fourth year. I'm studying biomedical engineering on the pre-med track, and I'm also having a minor in global health. I'm originally from Mexico City, but I kind of moved around a lot when I was younger, so I ended up graduating high school in Colombia. So if anyone is from either of those places here, let's rep. And the reason I'm up here is because, as he said, I'm on the Wildcat Welcome Board of Directors. Basically, that just means I'm here training all the incredible PAs that are here in the blue shirts, and just making sure everything is running really smoothly. But before I even say anything, I did want to take a second to really congratulate all of you for being here, because I know all the stress of applications, the entire process, and just everything you guys have to go through is so much. So really take a second to appreciate that you are here and be really proud of yourselves, because each one of you in this room has such unique experiences, and honestly, it would just not be the same if you all didn't bring what you're bringing. So yeah, welcome to McCormick. Please don't forget that you really belong here. We're all so happy you're here and you're bringing so much, because without you guys, it wouldn't be the same, honestly. But I'm here just to give you a couple of pieces of advice from my student perspective. I did want to say, just as a reminder, it is from my own experience, so honestly, take what you want from this. I think a big part of being a student here and just taking advantage of everything is really knowing what's going to work for you. But for me, one of the biggest lessons was actually to lean into the rest of my life. I know, as an engineer, it can be really hard to remember that there's, so much more to you than being a student. There's so much more than the classes you're taking. I know for me, my sophomore year, I was really into my pre-med requirements, and I was, taking 3 lab courses and just, really into my classes. And in that moment, I remembered in high school, my parents were actually the ones that would tell me, you need to take more breaks and you need to relax more. So just listen to my parents, do more of the things that you enjoy. For me, this quarter, what that's going to look like is I'm taking my first dance class at Northwestern. And for the people that know me, I'm really excited. I think it's going to add a lot of balance to the rest of my STEM courses. So just remember that even though you are students, there's so much more to every one of you. And don't forget to keep doing the stuff that makes you you. I think at the end of your first year, you're not really gonna remember how you did in your first EA1 midterm, or if you figured out the problem set that you stayed up doing. You're gonna remember the people you were with while you were doing those homeworks, and you're gonna remember every other time that you were doing things you were passionate about and enjoying. So really lean into that. Really lean into doing more of what you enjoy, whether that's joining engineering clubs, or I know some people doing their own coding projects, working out, whatever you enjoy doing. I would say just explore those avenues and really follow them while you're here. That's my first piece of advice. And my second one is more so about finding your support systems while you're here. I really don't think it's a secret that you guys are going to have challenging classes. You're going to come across obstacles while you're here. And that's just something that you're going to have to get used to. You're going to have to learn how to be comfortable being in those uncomfortable situations. And I think a big part of it is going to be just spending time and figuring out what your support system looks like here. I know for some, academically speaking, they really like going to office hours, speaking to professors and stuff like that. Other people are just more into reading the textbooks if they have any questions. Or for me, I really like going and talking to the TAs instead, because I think they're more approachable in my opinion. It really depends up to you guys, but you are going to come across a lot of different challenges. In the beginning for me, I was more so concerned about the large lecture sizes, because my high school actually had an average class of 5 people, and I was going into 100 people lecture halls. But now I'm like actually trying to figure out how to cook for myself because it's really hard living off campus and having to make 3 meals a day. So regardless of what obstacles you're coming across, I think the most important lesson for you guys will be just learning how to seek help and also being willing to give the help. So really lean into the community and the classmates that you're with for support in that sense. All the people in this room are the ones that you're going to be taking like the EA sequence with, DTC, maybe chemistry, maybe math. So really build a community where you can all help and support each other. I think you all have your own individual strengths, and the fact that you just get to learn from each other is such a good opportunity. So really just build a community where you can help each other and uplift each other in any way possible. I know I personally would not have made it through these 3 years up till now if I hadn't had like the group chats for my classes where I could just like make sure I was actually fulfilling the deadlines, but also like just laughing about how our struggles during like problem sets. So really just rely on the people that are literally here around you. And on that note, I did want to give a shout out to all the PAs and the blue shirts. They're such incredible people. They really are. They're really taking their time out of their summer and during school to be here for all of you. And they will continue to be here for whatever questions you have. So really use them as a resource. It's always good to have an upperclassman friend and show them some love and appreciation ever so often because they're incredible people. But yeah, what I mainly just wanted to make sure you got out of this was that there will be challenges and there will also be a lot of opportunities to learn from them. So really just enjoy your time here. Have fun. Enjoy doing all the things that you're going to be doing that we all know you're going to be amazing in. And yeah, if you need anything, I offer myself as an extra person. You can come up to me if you see me on the hallway, ask me for any help you need. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what all of you guys have to bring to McCormick. And I did promise the board that I would finish with this, so I'll DTC you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thanks also to all the PAs for getting everyone here. And we are done, so all of the PAs can get you away. I do want to remind you of the afternoon at McCormick. Please show up. Our secret weapon with respect to student groups is Dean Ellen Worsdahl, and among other things, she has guaranteed beautiful weather today. So thank her for that. See you all later. Thank you.